is the
Просто про складне. На кого працює суспільне? Ми не належимо діючій владі чи олігархам. Ніхто не може впливати на суспільне. Ми працюємо для суспільства та задля його зміцнення. Мета Суспільного – зробити Україну командою.
Доброго дня.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Ksenia Shamaitska, and today I'm going to moderate a discussion which is going to happen within our sub-program called Rights Now. This is our rights protection program of the 18th Documentary Film Festival, DocuDays UA. Today is the day's last festival, the last day of the festival, but you can still make it in and see some films in our video library, which will remain active starting from 1800 today till the end of the day. Our discussion will talk about the rights of the parents and children in maternity hospitals. My first question will be to Ms. Natalia. Natalia, you have tremendous experience, over 40 years of working experience. So could you please tell us about how mothers and fathers are being psychologically prepared in maternity hospitals and outside of maternity hospitals? What do they know about their rights and how do they find out about that? All right, let me tell you a few words about how a woman is registered with a maternity hospital. In our country, the law works in such a way that when a woman finds out that she is pregnant, she needs to get registered with an obgyn, with an obstetrician/gynecologist, so that the doctor will tell her what is going to happen throughout the next 9 months, what kind of tests she needs to run, when she needs to go through ultrasound, and then the doctor will prepare and coach the woman for childbirth. depending on how the pregnancy is running physiologically, whether it's normal or there are some complications. What kind of maternity hospital options she has and what kind of levels of service she has available. Many doctors work not only in obstetrician consultation offices, but also in maternity hospitals, which means that women have an opportunity to meet their obstetrician, which are actually going to deliver their child. So it all depends on the information that the doctor provides to the woman before childbirth. Thank you very much, Ms. Natalia. Ms. Susanna, I know that you have experience of childbirth. So could you share what a woman needs to give birth comfortably? And could you share some of your own personal experience? How did you go through childbirth and labor?
Very much for this question.
Дякую за запитання.
This is very important question, and each doctor, each midwife, and state provider should ask this question, because it's very important to fulfill the need of birthing women. And each woman is very unique, so you will have a slightly different answer. But I think what women have in common, generally speaking, what women need is privacy, respect, and they need very skilled birth attendant, doctor or midwife. And I personally gave birth like 10 years ago. And the biggest problem for me at the time was that there was not enough information. So I didn't know what my rights are. I didn't know what is the good practice. And in Slovakia, many things were still considered good. For example, like routine episiotomy or separation of mother and baby. It was very normalized. So it was very hard to get the right information.
Thank you, Ms. Susanna. Susanna is the head of Żenocze Kolo, the Slovakian NGO. Next question is to Mr. Serhiy. I know that you actually participated in a partner childbirth. So what do you believe is necessary to the woman, to the mother, and to the couple to give birth comfortably? Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very happy to see you all, and I'm very happy to share my incredible experience. Why it's incredible is because it's just an ocean of emotion, and the emotion is both positive and difficult to go through. But I stood up for it, not because someone asked me for it, but because I felt it necessary to support my wife. I must say that this is a difficult situation. This is a difficult event, but it's still one of the most pleasant events in your life. But sometimes it's difficult to give birth. Sometimes it's emotionally hard, and sometimes it's physically painful. So my wife, of course, needed my support, psychological and otherwise. So we decided to do it together because we had an agreement that we are going to give birth together, that I'm going to support her, but I'm going to follow her and the doctor's every command because she has a much harder time than me, obviously. And we had a lot of discussions prior, and she said she is going to be concentrated on childbirth, but I'm going to monitor the doctor's decisions. I'm going to maybe make some decisions regarding some interventions, because it would be difficult for my wife to consent while giving birth. So our partner childbirth was difficult. It was long, it was complicated, but still it all resolved very well. The boy was born very healthy, and for almost 7 months, we are so happy, and we can't. So, yes, thank you, Mr. Serhiy. So who told you about what you have to do, what you don't have to do, what you may or may not ask? Ms. Natalia said that that a doctor who's supervising the pregnancy was supposed to tell you all the do's and don'ts and the cans and cans. Who was that in your case? Well, in our case, this was the gynecologist who was delivering our baby. When we were registering with this doctor, we already told her right from the start that we want to do it together. But the lockdown actually intervened with that. But our maternity hospital did not have issues with that. But I know with some maternity hospitals during the lockdown and the quarantine, in some maternity hospitals, I don't know if that's true or not, but some fathers would be disallowed to attend due to the quarantine. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Serhiy. I note that in terms of applications and addresses, we will ask this question to Oksana Filipishina, who can share some information about whether parents send requests to the government regarding their rights being infringed in one way or another. Thank you very much, Ksenia. I thought that, when I thought about, we heard you talking about requests, I figured out that this is probably going to be a question for me. And indeed, the last year, in terms of the quarantine, we had a lot of requests and clarification requests and claims from some citizens against maternity wards disallowing partnership restrictions. Let me tell you this, there are no quarantine restrictions in terms of the regulatory framework. Let's say the edict of the Ministry of Healthcare of 2007, which cements the right for both parents to be present during childbirth, it's still in effect. And even if some decisions were made, those were definitely in contradiction of the current law and procedure. Of course, we respond to these complaints. And as far as I know, in Ukraine, we had a study. There was even a petition on the president's website regarding the harm to the parents and the children by these refusals to take part in the partnership childbirth. Actually, in last year saw about a 6% growth in C-sections. So in 2019, about 24% of women had C-sections, and last year it was up to 30%. Of course, these refusals have a very negative effect on the psychological well-being of the mother, which is crucially important, and who really needs support during this important moment, this critical moment in their lives. And of course, that has a negative effect on the fathers, because if they want to support their partner in childbirth, because a father doubtlessly has a right to see his child and to communicate with his child, and even Mr. Serhiy probably can confirm how important it is to see the first seconds of the life of your child. Then, of course, it's obvious that parents have to have a starkly negative reaction to these refusals. I know that the healthcare minister also commented on the situation. He reiterated that it's completely illegal to prohibit both parents to participate in a partnership childbirth. And I know that the maternity hospitals received 6 million PCR tests in order to screen both parents for COVID-19. So there should be no precautions and no restrictions whatsoever on both parents attending the childbirth and labor. Natalia, could you please tell us what happens if something goes wrong during childbirth? What can the doctors appeal to? Because besides creating a comfortable atmosphere for both parents, we need to create an atmosphere for medical professionals to execute these deliveries. We need to make sure that all parties to the process feel comfortable. We need to make sure that doctors are less nervous, they're more confident, and what allows them to feel confident. Maybe there's some regulatory framework, there's some practice regarding the maybe they can go to colleagues who can give them advice, or maybe there are legal professionals who specialize in this type of assistance. Then I'd like to thank you very much. I'd like to say that even the most physiologically normal childbirth, even Mrs. Serhi mentioned that they had a difficult childbirth, and for him it was a meaningful event in his life. And my institution, it accepts women not only with physiologically normal childbirth, but also women with heart conditions, diabetes, different tumors in the uterus, etc. That's why we have a much higher percentage of C-sections than average of Ukraine. But let me say this, qualified doctors have a much easier time working lately because the partners are also present during childbirth. This gives doctors a lot of confidence and gives the mothers a lot of confidence and gives an opportunity to explain everything. Let me say this, for many years, we make a contract / consent form with the patient and their relatives, which will expect to be present in childbirth. So all of the actions which the doctors and nurses and technicians, medical technicians will perform are definitely discussed and consented to by the patients or their legal representative. Therefore, we don't have any issues that would really make our legal position worse. Honestly speaking, partnership in childbirth, we got a lot less indications. Even actually, we use a lot less painkillers, because when there is a close person, when there's a husband who can assist with breathing exercises and different relaxations techniques, do some massaging with a bowl or with a carpet, that allows the childbirth to be much easier physiologically as well. We do have legal professionals with us, but we employ them when there are claims and when there are some unclear situations or gray areas. But in terms of childbirth, when a woman sees, or when her husband sees that she starts hemorrhaging and you need to go into a C-section, we explain this to the wife and to the mother and to the father, and usually they don't have any questions because it's very obvious as it is. So we can reach some kind of understanding. Thank you very much for giving us such an easy and accessible explanation and feedback about such a complex phenomenon as partnership childbirth. I think for many women watching us, this is going to clarify a lot of things. And like Natalia said, please pay attention that it shouldn't be the father or the husband during a partnership childbirth. It could be one of your parents or any person who can legally represent you. Now, I have a question to Ms. Maya, who is the director of The Unseen, and it's a film talking very emotionally about childbirth. So, Ms. Maya, your films were awarded during our festival. So how can your film change the situation, and what can clarify and amplify the effect of your film?
Good afternoon. We could see already when we had Slovak national premiere last year in November, we could see that birth trauma and respectful childbirth is a very big topic for our people and for people in Visegrad region. And what we can do better is important to see that woman, she is in the center of our attention. So when we speak that doctors and the midwives, they need a good working environment, we cannot forget that there is a woman, and a woman, she's delivering for her first baby or second baby or third baby, but still for her is the special occasion. And when we forget about her, we can harm very much her mental health. And for example, in my country, I was very afraid when I started to speak with journalists that they will be not so gentle with this controversial topic, but I was very surprised that already they spoke in a very nice way and with very big respect for women. And they didn't underestimate their feelings and their words. And we could see it in my movie as well, how important is really to listen to expectation and wishes of women. And don't forget that mother and child, they are one unit and we cannot separate them. And for example, for the future, we can see that local activism can be solution, that women who see that something is going wrong in their regional hospital, in their maternity ward, they try to speak with doctors and midwife, and they start to open discussion for a respectful birth. And I want to say one more thing, that we are not speaking only about natural birth, about birth where woman, she has any disease or she needs C-section. Always we need to respect her and to listen to her.
Thank you very much, Ms. Maya. I'd like to remind our viewers that you're welcome to ask your questions, and we are going to read them on air. And some of the best questions will get a promo code for a Rights Now film and a calendar. Ms. Susanna, what do you believe has helped improve the situation with childbirth in Slovakia right now? Because you compared your experience of 10 years ago, then you created an NGO. So what helps drive this positive change?
In my opinion, the main reason was that the birth issue and the condition in which women give birth became a public issue. Because before it was something that was discussed only on maternity website. It was not in the mainstream media, TV or journals. But after many efforts, not only from our organization, but also from other organizations or individuals, there was another movie, another books, it became a public issue. And our organization did a very hard work to monitor the violation of human rights in maternity hospitals. We did research and we published this research and we framed this issue as human rights issue. So this really helped. And we also opened the discussion about good practices. And hand in hand, it were the women's stories. They tell us how they felt, what happened to them. And when we started, these stories were rejected like some kind of horror stories, that they are not important, or it is just 1 in 1,000 women. But right now, people are very receptive to this. And we always have a very good impact when we publish such story. And so becoming in a public issue really, really helped.
Thank you very much for your feedback. Ms. Natalia, you have mentioned that parents can consult with medics and legal professionals. But what happens if there are cases of indecent behavior or even violence? How are these investigated if there's serious misconduct from the medical personnel? Can you give us some bird eye view? Well, in all the medical institutions, we would have a committee on considering claims about cases which led to the death or trauma of a newborn baby, or if there are significant claims from women or their families, all of these claims will get duly reviewed. And decisions are made and conclusions are drawn which can improve the work of these maternity hospitals, even though we're living in these difficult COVID times, which have made us more distant from each other. But at the same time, there's a lot of online learning happening, and there are webinars, and there are a lot of conferences, also for doctors, and certification exams for doctors being held online. And lately, I must say, there are actually less claims because there are less pregnant women, and that's why every mother gets much more attention and respect, and every childbirth gets specifically attained to. And right now, let's say in the last year, I haven't had any significant claims for our institution or for our maternity department. Uh, any claims against women in general and mothers in particular. Thank you very much, Ms. Natalia. Ms. Oksana, I have a question as follows. If a committee has consideration, considers a claim, but the parents are not happy with the decision, and if the parents are not happy with how the medical institution dealt with them, and they believe that if their rights are infringed, and they go to the ombudsman, what happens then? Is there a consideration process or appeals process, and what is the expected result? The ombudsman acts based on the law of on the ombudsman of human rights of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. And one of the competency of the ombudsman is considering the illegitimate actions or inactions of governmental institutions. So ideally, the ombudsman should only get claims when there's a lack of help, or if there's misdoing on the level of the region, district, or nationally. So we are not a substitute for investigating bodies. And if we're talking about, God forbid, lethal situations that Ms. Natalia mentioned, or difficult, some grave complications, that is, of course, would warrant criminal investigation. And that, again, is a little bit besides our competence. So in these cases, needless to say, we first tell people to press charges with the competent authority. So if a local claims committee has unduly reacted to a legitimate claim, and if we're talking about the institution, if we're talking about the Obgyn Institute, then probably these actions should be claimed against with the Ministry of Healthcare, and they would probably such a claim would warrant a special committee, and we would of course facilitate the creation of these ad hoc commissions if people are not happy with the results of primary consideration and the primary healthcare institution. And if we believe that the situation is grave enough to warrant a criminal investigation, we would probably forward the claim to the police. And claimants definitely have a right to do that on their own. Therefore, you really need to consider the right level of claim. Thank you very much, Ms. Oksana, for clarifying this claims procedure. I really hope that we won't need to file such claims, that we'll never are faced with such situations in our life. But if you're listening to us, please let your friends and family know if the situation, God forbid, arises. Let people know where to go. So, Ms. Marina, you are a member of parliament. Thank you very much for joining us. And a question to you. So what could you tell us? What does the legislation bring for us? what does the law have in store for us? Because my colleagues from the Helsinki Union says that there's enough legal regulation, and Natalia says there's enough regulation for to ensure the comfort of medical professionals. But as a lawmaker, could you tell us what do you believe is lacking for us to have more protection of our rights? Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to react about the partnership childbirth. Actually, in our lawmaking practice, we have definitely encountered situations where couples would be refused to engage in partnership childbirth, even though, like you've rightfully mentioned, there is no grounds to refuse partner childbirth. Moreover, Ukraine has to be guided by the WHO recommendations, which actually recommends even COVID positive women to give birth together with their partners. So we have raised this issue publicly, and we communicated with the regional representatives, with the regional departments of healthcare, so that any such restrictions would be lifted immediately. And we really helped couples to work with that. But now the parliament has a very important legislative initiative, which is aimed to help couples and parents to enjoy equal opportunities to take care after and look after the kid. Well, some people say that the opportunity is already equal. There are maternity and paternity leaves that one of the parents can take up until 3 years of age. But then again, the active law says that a man is only entitled to such a paternity leave when a woman goes back into the workforce and is earning a salary. But if a woman is an entrepreneur or is jobless, she cannot get the certificate of going back into the workforce. So a man could not get the paternity leave legally. So, and this could be amended. And another thing we want to introduce is an additional leave for men in the amount of 2 weeks for men on the occasion of paternity. And I hope that we are able to pass this legislative initiative by the summer, and then we will need to work on the practice, and we'll need to raise awareness and inform the families about these opportunities that they have. And of course, we want Ukrainians to use that, because the Ukrainian society has a lot of young families who try to be much more responsible regarding the care of their child. They want to share these responsibilities more equally, and we believe that the law needs to follow that. And I know that Mr. Serhiy is really expecting this law. He really can't wait to get this additional leave because he became a father. And I think this is about equality. So we would like to thank Ms. Marina for her initiative and for supporting this important conversation about partner childbirth. And it's very important for this topic to be discussed in public, and we hope that maternity hospitals change their practice and don't prohibit partner childbirth on the basis of the lockdown or the pandemic. But then again, some cases happen, and we have a comment. Yelena Patmanova says that I wrote to the maternity hospital about being prohibited from partner childbirth, to my maternity hospital and the Department of Healthcare, and everybody says the same. They say that a maternity hospital may prohibit partner childbirth. Who could comment on this situation, and what should a person do?
Пані Оксана. Дякую, Ксенія. Ну, власне кажучи, пологовий будинок – це є комунальний заклад охорони здоров'я.
In fact, a maternity ward is a communal establishment which is subject to the original administration, which acts on the basis of the law on administrations. And for them, the most important part are the normative documents of the national level. including all those orders which concern the system of healthcare in Ukraine. Therefore, I emphasize again that when the people are not allowed to do it, this is not actually legal. So in this case, the actions could be subject to a complaint, and you could complain against such actions, and we would have intervened and tried to resolve this in your favor. But when we're talking about childbirth, you know that we are talking minutes, and you could also call the ombudsperson's hotline. We have another question. Ms. Svitlana Devyanova Ponomarenko writes, this is the question to Ms. Natalia. Ms. Natalia, what was the strictest sanction against the doctor when there was the case of violation of women's rights? When a child was traumatized or when the child died? What is the strictest sanction against the doctor in this case? Unfortunately, we do have a case when a child was traumatized, and there was a commission convened and an investigation by the prosecutor's office in Ukraine. And the decision was to suspend the doctor's license and to forbid them from practicing for half a year and to send them on a retraining course. And the head of the department was reprimanded. It was a long time ago, but it happened. So we are talking about this case. Thank you, Ms. Natalia. And 1 second, I would like to add that now we are strictly following the advice concerning parents, and whatever happens, this information goes directly to the persons involved, what is happening during childbirth. And the parents are informed in case a surgical procedure is necessary. Thank you, Ms. Natalia. We understand that nowadays the practice of informing expecting women and their partners about what's going to happen. But the question to you, how do the doctors, the healthcare professionals learn this information about the rights of birthing mothers and parents and partners? Yes, we do undergo training. Every day is training and learning for us. And we are used to it, even that every manipulation and intravenous injection, intramuscular injection is explained. What are the possible complications in these cases? So now it's so much easier because people understand what's being done to them. Thank you. So the doctors are informed about women's rights, and based on the information they have, they then inform the expecting mothers. And we have another. And in fact, the Constitution outlines the rights of the patients, and this must be followed. Diana Rybchik, what legal norms do we refer to when the partner is not allowed to be present at the childbirth? And I think Oksana Filipishina already told us some information about it, but Ms. Oksana, can you tell us about this? This is the order of the Ministry of Healthcare of Ukraine, number 234 of May 10, 2007, which stipulates the right of parents for the childbirth with the partner. Thank you, Ms. Oksana. And I would like to learn more about the international positive experience. Ms. Maya, when you were filming, you visited some developed European countries. So could you share positive practices that you learned about, good practices? Is there anything that could be recommended to Ukraine based on this positive experience?
Yes, at the beginning, I saw only Slovak and Czech practice, where is this picture of women lying on the bed, following just orders of the doctors, and they have no right and no voice to say anything and to lead their childbirth. So when I met first time Jette Clausen, an expert for birth violence, she helped me to see practice in Danish hospital. And for me, it was really a good example of how we can do it. Even when Jette Clausen, she said that Danish practice is not the best on the world. Still, for me, it was big difference against Slovakia. For example, even when you watched my movie, you can see it, like picture that a woman, she enters just one room, she's only with one midwife, she has dimmed lights in the room, and her partner or somebody from the family is on her side, and she can make her time, and she is not pushing to anything. And for example, she can change positions. She can choose if she will be in the bathroom or she will be in standing position. There are no routine techniques like episiotomy or vaginal examination or speeding up the process, or even after birth, nobody separated her and her newborn. So for me, to see that woman, she is really in the center of this practice, and they are really listening to her, and she can refuse if she doesn't wants to follow the orders of doctors or midwives company during the birth. So yeah.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you, Maya. And Ms. Natalia, I know that with your experience, with your huge amount of knowledge on the childbirth, which doesn't happen naturally. So what can our policymakers do? What advice could you give to those people to make childbirth and more and more comfortable in Ukraine for those who are already giving birth? I think that the best practice is that when the doctor follows up on this pregnancy from the outset, and they work with the women until the very end. It's important to know what doctor and what midwife is going to be present. So legally, you can change the doctor, you can choose your doctor, and our legislation actually has all these norms. So what I would like to say is that to improve the conditions for birthing mothers, we would like to increase the funding of maternity wards. Maybe those who are working right now under the new contract already have this funding in place, but not all the institutions. So we refer to the protocols from the international practice, from Australian practice, on the British protocols, and we refer to the US protocols. And if we are able to get the necessary funding for these normative acts, then it will improve greatly. Serhiy, what would be your advice to feel more comfortable when you go to the childbirth for the second time? My advice is simple. Now we are given this information that first, you don't need to worry. Secondly, the question of the possibility of childbirth with the partner is under question. So there are a lot of human rights organizations who can help. So the mother shouldn't worry, because you can resolve this question and you can arrive at a positive solution. But we should mention that childbirth is just one part of the process, because after the childbirth, your wife needs to have some rest. And my wife had to stay in the hospital for 5 days. So I had to help her, because with feeding, with changing the child. So I had to do all of that. So mothers need psychological support. This is a must. Your wife can have a lot of worries, and she has a right to that, although it's the most pleasant period in your life. So there are lots of duties that you have to fulfill, not because you're your mother's helper, but you're the father, and you are just the same part of the family as the mother is. And now we shifted everything online, and we managed to receive all the documents online without leaving the house in just one day. One day, the representative of the ministry came to us, and the next day we got all the necessary documentation. So while mother is resting after childbirth, dad is doing all these things, resolving the issues with the documentation. So positive emotions are important. So please support your partners. And during the childbirth, your wife has the right to tell you that you should leave, because sometimes it's uncomfortable for her when you're present. So at some point, my wife asked me to leave because she wanted to change a position. So you have to react adequately, because you should be able to come back when it's necessary, but don't worry, support each other, then you'll cope with it. Well, flying colors. Thank you, Serhiy. Thank you for this positive outlook. And thank you to those who are watching us. We hope that everything's going to be fine when you are with a professional such as Miss Natalia. You'll receive all necessary assistance. But if you're not lucky, if something happened, please call the hotline of the Ministry of Health of Ukraine. Please file your complaint. If you don't receive the positive answer, then you have the right to apply to the ombudsperson. All the contacts available are on the website. If you need a partner or any other person who could support you during childbirth, please find out this information to make sure that this person is with you. The law is on your side. It's allowed. Another question. Do doctors and midwives understand that that a birthing mother is not a patient? So how many women understand that, and how many doctors do. So this is the question to Olena Zarecka. As it was said that not only women who have issues come to her institution. Yes, indeed. Our institution receives only a small percentage of women who can have a normal vaginal delivery. But I start with this that pregnancy is not a disease. You don't need to cure a pregnant woman. You have to support her to carry out all the necessary tests and to make sure that the child is developing normally. Only 8% of normal childbirth, because the overwhelming majority of women are some women who have some chronic diseases and other conditions. We are having another question. It must be our last question for today. Could you tell us what order we can use to refer if you give birth naturally? What order allows you to choose the position to give birth? According to current legislation, you can choose any position. 20 years ago, there was programmed childbirth procedures where you had to sit or you had to lie down, but now the woman has the right to choose the position to give birth. This is the order of the Ministry of Health of Ukraine. This is the topic of the order on normal vaginal delivery. And thank you. I hope that our audience will find the answers, because whoever has the internet and desire can find this information. And Miss Maya, can you tell us who should watch your film and why? For who watching your film is a must?
I think my movie is really for whole society, and especially for professionals and people who are expecting a baby, because you can see in the movie what is real respect for women, that is not only about nice words, but it's really about listening, that doctors and midwives, they cannot use manipulation for their work, and that they really need keep time for woman and for her partner. So it's important to understand for professionals that they can see woman just during the birth process, but woman, she is going home, and she has to deal with the feelings after traumatic birth. And we cannot do it. We need to keep women strong and with mental health.
Thank you, Maya. Ms. Oksana, and just one last question to you. Could you tell us what we should do, what we should demand from the state to make childbirth more comfortable? You know, childbirth is, first of all, the right to life, to health, to dignity, and for the woman to exercise her right, we have to have requirements towards the state. So first, this is the appropriate conditions in the maternity ward. It must not be the place where you are devoid of freedom. This must be financially provided, and since starting this year, the state stipulates the standard for childbirth of say over 10,000 hryvnias. So before the childbirth, it's 1,700 hryvnias. So we already have some standard budget for it. And beside that, we must have proper healthcare and proper conditions, services, the network of services, because the woman shouldn't worry about clothes for her child, about the bottles, about the food. Everything must be in the maternity ward. I once saw that the report from the Israeli maternity ward, and I thought that it was a supermarket because they have everything to support life, just everything. So we need to move away from the Soviet standards, because in Soviet times, it was sort of the place where your freedom is limited. Thank you, Ms. Oksana. And I remind you that our discussion is the final one in the series of discussions at 18th DocuDays UA Film Festival within the human rights program Rights Now. And today you can still go and visit the Living Library and watch the films on docuspace.org. You can watch the discussions on this site, on our social networks, and on Facebook and YouTube. We are thankful to all our participants, to the ombudsperson, to inclusively friendly, to all our partners, Hromadske Plavkom, Hromadske Radio, Ingenious Radio, Chirikli, and all of them, because our discussion is also being interpreted into Roma language. And this year we made sure that we have inclusivity, and we will continue with it. And we also support the campaign on the Center of Civil Freedoms, and urges us to support political prisoners, the prisoners of the Kremlin. And this support is possible because you can sign the petition, you can raise your voice for those whose rights are violated. So we demand the release of the political prisoners. So please watch the short video instructions, scan the QR code, and sign the petition. Let's together fight for the rights of those who cannot do that themselves. So thank you for Ms. Szymanska, and see you next year at
Мій підпис
festival.
– це просто підпис, який я придумала в 16 років.
Не надто рівний розчерк, довгий з карлючками хвіст.
Це просто підпис, знаєш? Нічого особливого, як у всіх.
Мій підпис виглядає дитячим на першій сторінці паспорту.
Мій ледь помітно тремтячий стоїть на папірчику з раксом.
Мій улюблений підпис в правах. Там і фото нормально вийшло.
Коли щось не складалося, зі мною траплялися і болючі підписи.
Але це ж просто підпис, знаєш. Нічого особливого, як в усіх.
Я прошу тебе про автограф. Найпростіший в твоєму житті.
Що поставить світ з голови на ноги.
Поверне планету в її правильну вісь.
Це просто підпис, знаєш?
Для того, для кого це зовсім непросто.
Зроби не тому, що тебе попросили якісь балакучі голови.
Зроби це тому, що ти просто в силі. Тому що ти в силі дати голос тим, хто в неволі.
Зроби це тому, що ти просто можеш зробити це.
Дякую.